Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So we got a little bit more news about Diablo 4. They posted a video called End Game, and we're going to take a look at the End Game video, and we're going to get an idea of what kind of end game stuff they have in store for us. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch the video, just normally, and then we're going to go back over the video and kind of like data mine it for information, and I'm going to talk about various things. So join me on today's video about Diablo 4, shall we?
The last story mission is really the beginning of a whole different part of the journey.
Now you're set up for the end game, and that end game is rich with things to do that allow you to get more and more powerful.
Whether it's new items or new dungeons or new Paragon boards, every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
And it's something that we're going to support for years to come.
I'm really excited for folks to get their hands on Diablo 4.
Just to see millions of people really enjoying the different options.
Through the campaign,
local events, couch co-op,
Endgame.
PvP, it almost doesn't end.
And we are so close.
All right, so that was the video. Kind of short, only about 46 seconds, but we do have some interesting things here. I'll go ahead and mute this, and we're going to go through this sort of frame by frame and have a little bit of fun with this, shall we? So right here we've got what looks like a really cool looking tomb, very dark, very arid. Just a really cool little clip of him running through a door. And I don't know, it just looked really interesting. These monsters, I don't know what's going on with these monsters, but they are definitely kind of odd. They've got multiple hands. Looks like 1 to 2, 3 hands on each side. So what, 6 hands total? They kind of remind me of Mephisto. Mephisto has multiple hands. And the battle here definitely has some interesting dynamics going on. I'm not saying a lot of like Diablo 3-esque stuff. This is the Paragon board, and the Paragon board is... I'm not really too excited about the Paragon board, to be honest. Not really sure why they decided to go in this direction, but I guarantee you it's definitely going to make things a little more complicated. And it's going to turn some people off of it entirely just simply because it's so complicated. Not only is it Paragon board, it's Paragon boards, plural. Then we also have a Whirlwind Barbarian here, which was kind of cool to see. Him just like, you know, meandering through everything. It's a pretty neat little image of carnage there. Chop, 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 chop. Chop, 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 chop. Now, they actually talked about this in one of the previous quarterly updates, how the hitbox on things like this is actually more accurate than it was before. So you notice how, like, his weapon is right here, not right here, and not right here. So they basically said that the hitbox on things like Whirlwind and abilities is going to be more accurate to where the weapon actually is. And I was actually really kind of excited about that. So you notice that as he's going through, the monsters don't get hit until the weapon passes through them, which is cool, which is pretty cool in my opinion. He also utilizes some other abilities here. He has a kick. As you can see, a very powerful like force kick, which actually knocks back several of the creatures. You can see them flying backwards there. And then he also has a little shout that he does right there. That was a very interesting little shout. Has quite the radius on it too. He also did another shout a little bit earlier when he finished his whirlwind. Right here, more looks kind of actually looks more like a stomp to me. Definitely a stomp. I'll say that's a stomp. And it also seems to have stunned the monsters. As you can see, they have a stun effect over top of their head. That is very similar to the Diablo 2 stun effect in many ways. And it's kind of interesting to see. This right here is a really cool, like, scape. If this is real stuff in the background, which it does look like it is, because these look like monsters that you can actually go fight, this is a really pretty, you know, sort of a background sort of a game. I really think that this is really, really awesome looking. And then we have this right here, which seems to be the rogue, if I'm reading this correctly or looking at it correctly. So we've got some visual play of the rain of arrows skill. It looks like there's some other little skills that she's using that are putting like meteors in the ground, or maybe that's the enemy. I'm not exactly 100% sure. But we do have what looks like a very interesting looking skeleton with a scythe right here. That could be perhaps from the necromancer. Is that a necromancer or is that a monster? It's hard to say exactly. And then right here we have her doing her rain of arrows again. And then this one right here seems to be, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the sorceress. Not really a lot to go on there. And then this seems to be the druid. I want to say this is the druid. That's kind of a really beastly looking druid, isn't it? If that is the druid. Let me go back a little bit more. Yeah. Now I am seeing some pretty standard Diablo 3 monsters here. See these little like flies that are flying away? That's a really standard Diablo 3 monster. The more stuff of Diablo 3 that I see, the less I'm interested. These priests, for instance, that are like standing around this circle, summoning some sort of like, demon beast monster or whatever. Again, that's a pretty standard Diablo 3 monster. These spiders, spiders were in Diablo 2 as well as Diablo 3, but they seem to be a little bit more prevalent in Diablo 3 than they were in Diablo 2. These guys right here also seem to be Diablo 3 monsters. It's just that I've played so much of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 and Diablo 1 that I can recognize these monsters pretty easily, and I don't particularly care for fighting them. The Diablo 2 monsters are far superior to fight, in my opinion. The Paragon board is pretty crappy. These monsters are new. I don't think I've ever seen these guys before, so that's pretty cool. Let's go over one more time what they're saying as well. I'm going to pause it in between what they're talking about, and we're going to go over what they're saying.
The last story mission is really the beginning of a whole different part of the journey.
So right there we have the last story mission is the beginning of a whole different part of the journey. What does that mean? That means that literally you have to complete the last story mission before you start literally with the real end game material. So beating the game is essentially the beginning of like going into, like campaigns and dungeons and all this other stuff that you're going to probably grind forever on.
Now you're set up for the end game, and that end game is rich with things to do that allow you to get more and more powerful.
Whether
and what I hear when they say allow you to get more and more powerful is literally an endless grind, I guarantee you.
it's new items or new dungeons, or
new items and new dungeons could very well be referring to seasons. Like when you have a season that goes forward from another season, there's usually new items that are added during those seasons.
or new Paragon boards.
New Paragon boards is a little bit disheartening. Like, I don't generally like this kind of system. And telling me that, like, even after I've completed all the Paragon boards that are currently available to me, that you're going to add even more Paragon boards, not really too excited about that.
Every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
As long as they're doing constant content updates, that is a good thing, and that's kind of what that sounds like. They're like, hey, we're going to be doing constant content updates. I played a game very similar called World of Tanks that had constant content updates literally for like 15 years or 12 years or however how long that game's been out. Literally, they've never stopped updating the game. They've never stopped adding new stuff. They've never stopped putting in new tanks and new tech trees and all sorts of cool stuff. And it's a pretty cool thing to have a game that has constantly being developed.
And it's something that we're going to support for years to come.
something that we're going to support for years to come. I would hope that you would. Most games, at the very least, usually get about 5 or 6 years, of good support before they start to dwindle. But this game seems more and more like an MMO every time I've seen it, and an MMO needs support for literally decades.
I'm really excited for folks to get their hands on Diablo 4.
Just to see millions of people really enjoying the different options.
Through the campaign,
local events, couch co-op.
So campaign is obviously the single player event. Local co-op, like couch co-op, that's actually really cool. I'm actually pretty excited about the local co-op, the local couch co-op.
Local events.
Local events is very much an MMO thing. As you're running around the game world, there will be these local events that you can take part in. Other people can usually come and help you. And Final Fantasy XIV was really big on local events, if you guys ever played Final Fantasy XIV.
Couch co-op.
Endgame.
PvP.
PvP actually does sound kind of fun, especially with the way they've explained it as being in zones. I'm a little worried about how they have explained that PvP is going to be a flaggable thing. First, they said it was going to be zones that you go into, and basically once you enter the zone, you're flagged for PvP. And then they were like, oh, well, once you're in the zone, you can flag yourself for PvP, and that's just stupid. If you're going to have a PvP zone, it should be an auto flag for entering the zone. Bar none. You should never have it so that a person can enter a PvP zone and not be flagged for PvP. The whole point of PvP zones is that everybody in the PvP zones is part of the PvP system. Don't give anybody an option to enter the PvP zone and not be flagged. That's stupid.
It almost doesn't end.
It almost doesn't end. Which is very similar to the way an MMO works. MMOs generally don't end. Even after you have completed all of the end game, even after you have beaten the hardest raid boss and obtained the best equipment that you could possibly obtain, they add an expansion, or they increase the level cap, or they add a new raid. There is always something more to do. Now, the problem with MMOs, though, is that sometimes that always something more to do doesn't come quick enough, and people quit in the meantime while they're waiting for new content to release. So I guess we'll find out whether that content is going to release quick enough. I think that's pretty much everything I can glean out of this video. There's really not a lot more to glean from this. I wish it was a higher quality video too, but this is the one that they released. Maybe they will release a 4K version of this video at a later date. I'm actually kind of curious what this is. They've shown it several times. It's like a big giant hole into the like, just, I don't know, underworld, I guess. Originally I thought this was like some sort of like off-screen thing that you couldn't go to. But now that I've realized that it's an MMO, there's a very good chance you actually can go here, which makes me speculate what this actually is. It could be a quest hub, could be a raid dungeon, could be any number of things. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and keep watching.